Okay, chapter 8, sharing the road. So this is all about, we already talked about sharing the road, but this talks a little bit about commercial vehicles. Where did my book go? Oh. So we talked about larger vehicles, and I've already said that we want to give bigger trucks more room, extra room. So you don't want to follow too close to them because they actually have much larger blind spots. And I talked about this, right? Like here, again, maybe I'll use my little annotation thing. I'll draw on here. Can you guys see this? So here is the zone where he cannot see, right? If you're following beside a truck, you cannot assume that he can see you because he's got huge blind spots on both sides of him. He also cannot see directly behind him and for quite a distance, so even farther back. So even if you're 2 seconds behind a truck, he still probably can't see you. So if you're in this zone, the way you ensure that a truck driver can see you is he'll have mirrors here on the side, right? And if you can see his face in that mirror, then he can see you. That's how you'd want to take it. And so if even if you were way back here behind the vehicle, you want to make sure you can see him. Or if you're behind him, you want to make sure you can see both mirrors, both his side view mirrors. That way you know. Yeah, I guess I got it right. The fuel economy one, yeah. So be mindful, big trucks like that, they need lots of space, not only because they can't see you, also because if he's going to do a lane change, like say he wants to move over to the right here, and he puts on his signal and he starts turning over, he can't see you. He could, and if you're right in the middle here and he starts turning, you don't even have enough room to react, to speed up or slow down. So you never want to be driving in a vehicle's, in a big truck's blind spot like that. Just reading the notes there. Also in bad weather. Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. In bad weather or even in good weather, like in the summer where there's lots of gravel and stuff, be mindful too if you're driving close to a truck like that, they have really huge tires and they can kick up debris and rocks and things like that. I was way back, I was following a school bus and I was probably like at least 5 or 6 seconds away. Like I was like 20 car lengths away from this school bus. And we were entering into the ramp. We were getting ready to merge onto Anthony Henday. And this huge rock came up and it hit right in the middle of my brand new windshield, cracked the whole thing. So it wasn't anyone's fault. Like I was way far back. I was not following too close, but that rock still hit me. So be mindful. There's a lot of reasons why you want to give big trucks a lot of space. They're blind spots. They could be kicking up debris for your own safety. They can't see you. If you can't see them, then they can't see you in that mirror. Okay. So that's a big takeaway on that. The other thing is other road users. Oh, there's a lot of other vulnerable road users, which I call like cyclists, like pedestrians, like children, and motorcyclists. We don't there I don't have a slide on this, it's not in here, but motorcyclists, you really got to be careful of them because they're smaller, they're faster. They sometimes motorcyclists will weave out of traffic. They're not supposed to. They are supposed to follow the same rules just like any other vehicle. But because they're smaller, motorcycles can actually stop really quickly. They do have lights on them. They are equipped with turning lights and braking lights and stuff, and they do need to have those in proper working order, but they can stop very quickly. So you don't, even when I'm falling behind a motorcycle, I still give a lot of room because I want to make sure that I don't bump into that motorcyclist because that can knock him off his motorbike and that's really dangerous situation. So I give motorcyclists even more room than I do for vehicles. The other thing too is cyclists, like bicyclists, when they're on the road, you have to treat them like a vehicle and they need to behave like a vehicle as well. If they are using the road, then they are a vehicle. They need to have a full lane to themselves. So if you happen to come up to a vehicle or a bicycle road user, and those cyclists are usually going around 10 or 20 kilometers an hour, which is quite slow for a vehicle in comparison to a vehicle. So if you see a cyclist coming up, be prepared to move over, do a full complete lane change, and then until you pass that cyclist, and then you can move back into that lane. So you never want to just squeak by a cyclist. You don't want to assume that there's enough room, like, oh, he's good, he's over, because what if he were to fall while you were trying to pass him and he doesn't have enough room, you're hitting him, right? Or what if you scare him as you're driving by because you're so close to him? So you want to give those cyclists a lot of room. The other thing is cyclists do not have lights on them. They don't have turning signals and brake lights. So you have to be careful for cyclists, and you have to watch. They will be doing hand signals. And actually in the beginning of chapter 3, it talks about hand signals. And what those hand signals mean. If they're putting it up, that means that they're always going to use their left hand, right? So you can see them, right? Their left. And if it's up, it means that they're turning right. If it's pointed out, they're turning left. And if it's down, if they're pointing their arm down, that means that they're going to stop. So watch out for those things. They could use their hand signals. However, some cyclists forget to use hand signals as well, especially if say they're on shaky gravel and they need to keep two hands on their steering wheel, or they need to make a quick maneuver. They may not always be preparing other vehicles by using their hand signals. So you want to give them lots of space and lots of room and just pass safely around them. And bicyclists are allowed to use the road. So don't think like, hey, get on the sidewalk. They're actually required to use the road. They're not supposed to be using the sidewalk and obstructing pedestrians. So that was just about trucks. School buses. So here's another thing too. The greatest danger for safety of students is when they're entering and exiting a school bus. So you'll see this a lot when they're in a school zone, it's a lot safer. When they actually get to school, that's not so bad, because those school zones, they've already have a lot of safety measures about reduced speed and increasing visibility. They could have pedestrians or like crosswalk assistance, things like that. However, that school buses could also still be picking up and dropping off kids outside of school zones. When they're dropping students off at home or in rural areas on the side of highways, there could be children trying to cross the road. And so if you ever see a school bus, there's certain rules that you need to follow. So if you're on an undivided highway, which means there's traffic going in both directions, there's no dividers in between you, you are required to come to a full stop. If the school bus, like in this situation, the school bus has their stop sign out and the red light is flashing, all vehicles on both directions need to come to a full stop, because there could be a student trying to cross the road, right? When they have that stop sign out, that means that there's somebody crossing or potentially going to be crossing. If you're on a divided highway, you still have to come to a stop behind that bus. But if you're going in the other direction and there's a meridian or a barrier in between you, you can proceed, but you still have to slow down and reduce your speed. So you also need to take a lot of caution. If there is a school bus that's slowing down or being prepared to stop, you should slow down and prepare to stop as well. Don't try to just speed up and be like, I'm trying to get by, because you never know what's going on at the front of that school bus, right? There could be students trying to get on or off, or trying to cross the street to get to that bus. So here's a video that reiterates what I said, but more in a visual way, about when you need to stop, when you're required to stop for a school bus. Oh.
One of the greatest concerns that we have during the school year is the safety of our children when getting on and off school buses. Hi, I'm Officer Chuck Hoffkamp with the Loveland Police Department. Let's take a look and talk about when you may or may not pass a school bus with flashing lights. Just like a stoplight, the school bus yellow lights will flash before it arrives at a school bus stop, and the red lights begin to flash. Colorado law requires that when the school bus red lights are flashing, vehicles may not pass by the bus. When the red flashing lights come on, a stop sign located on the driver's side of the bus is also activated. On a two-lane road, traffic in both directions is required to stop and may not pass the bus. On a four-lane road with only a painted double yellow line dividing the roadway, here again traffic in both directions is required to stop.
Ah. Sorry, gotta start the video again. We're in the middle, right?
Bus. On a four-lane road with only a painted double yellow line dividing the roadway, here again traffic in both directions is required to stop. This type of violation is common in Loveland. On the other hand, on a four-lane road with a raised or lowered median, traffic traveling in the opposite direction of the bus on the other side of the median is not required to stop. The traffic traveling in the same direction as the bus on the same side of the raised median is required to stop. On a four-lane road with a painted median, vehicles traveling in the opposite direction on the other side of the painted median are not required to stop. These are the areas that have the middle or fifth lane for turning and have double yellow lines. Passing a school bus with the red lights flashing is a serious traffic offense. It is a mandatory court appearance, a 6-point violation, and about a $200 fine. There are no deals for school bus red light violations. For the safety of our children, please be careful around school buses and be sure to follow the rules. Oh.
So he was talking about the fines and stuff, but in other areas. But the rules from the video is what applies, is that if you're on an undivided highway, on both the sides, it doesn't matter what direction, you need to stop for that school bus while they're flashing the red lights, right? The only time you're able to go forward is when there is a meridian in between you. Then the vehicles on the other side can go. So there's an image of this, or there's a good diagram of this on page 102. And it very well could be a question on your test. They sometimes like to ask about school buses. So make sure that that's really clear for you. The other thing is snowplows. So other road users, snowplows, we get them a lot here in Canada and in Alberta. We have snow probably half the year almost, feels like 5-6 months of the year we're getting snow. So you'll definitely encounter a snowplow at some point in your driving. So these operate during the winter months. They're designed to push snow off of the road, which makes our road safer. But while they're working, you may run into them. They try to get the snowplows out really, really early at like 5 a.m. They're out there waking you up. But they're doing that because they drive very, very slow. They need to go slow in order to give enough time for that snow plow to pick up the snow and move it. So they want to try to limit the amount of times that they're doing this, because they do dramatically reduce traffic, especially during like rush hour when people are busy trying to get to work and they're going like, 8 kilometers an hour. That can really, really slow down your commute time and slow everybody down, make them late for work. So they try to do it early in the morning, but if you get behind a snowplow, there's some things for you to remember. Snowplows, they're equipped with flashing amber lights. And remember, amber means yellow. So it doesn't mean you have to come to a full stop like a school bus, but you do need to be aware that you need to slow down. And you may or may not be allowed to pass that snowplow. If there's another lane beside the snowplow, that's fine. It's safe for you to use that lane. You can pass them, that's fine. But in this situation, in the image, it's only a 2-lane highway, so that vehicle that's behind the snowplow, he would actually have to come out and enter into the opposite lane of traffic to pass this snowplow. And that can be dangerous if the visibility is low, right? Like it's early in the morning, it's kind of not, it's not quite daylight yet, or there's a lot of snow flying around. He can't see far enough in front of him to make a safe pass. So what he should do is stay well back and just wait. Snowplow operators, they will actually pull over every 8 to 12 kilometers and they'll let other vehicles pass. So it may take a few minutes. You may be stuck behind there for like 10 minutes or so, something like that, 10, 15 minutes. Not really 15 minutes. It's usually less than that. So just be patient. Don't try to rush it. Don't put yourself in an unsafe situation. If a snowplow is doing its work, he will slow down and stop and let vehicles pass because he knows that he's going slow. And if there's a bit of a buildup or a lineup behind him, he'll let you go through. So just wait for it. Wait to pass them until it's safe, until he lets you, unless you have a lane to do so. So other thing, off-road or ATV vehicles, off-roading vehicles such as quads, snowmobiles, dirt bikes, they may not be easy to see. So when you're driving, be aware of these off-road vehicles. They could be operating nearby and they could cross the road. So you're not supposed to drive quads and snowmobiles, things like that. Even dirt bikes that lower speeds, they're not supposed to be on primary highways. They're not designed to be long commuting vehicles. They're more for recreational purposes or work purposes, right? So most of those vehicles they have their own designated roads on the side or in the ditch, or they have their own trails that they will be driving. But there is times that that those vehicles want to cross the highway, and those will be designated and marked by a sign. There will be a sign that'll either be a snowmobile or a dirt bike, or it'll say off-road vehicles, crossing, things like that. So be mindful of that. And if you see a sign like that, just slow down or take a look around. There may be no vehicles, ATV vehicles or off-road vehicles, but there could be them, and there could be waiting for a good gap. So use caution and be prepared to stop for them, because sometimes they don't want to stop and wait. They want to just whip by. So don't be alarmed if a dirt bike comes out really quickly in front of you, because they often think that they're pretty fast and they can get through. So just be prepared for that. Look for those crossing ways and look for those signs. Funeral processions. So you may be in a situation where there's a funeral procession going on. And what is that? That's where there's typically a hearse involved, and then there's a whole lineup of vehicles with that hearse. They're all going together because they're transporting that body to go to a burial or to a funeral. So if you see a funeral procession, you have to yield the right of way to them, to the whole group. So even if there's 10 or 15 cars all together, you have to wait until they all go through and proceed through, like especially in an intersection. If you're driving in a funeral procession, they are actually allowed to go through that intersection even if the light changes. So if they're driving through an intersection, it's green, and then all of a sudden it goes red on them and there's still a few cars that need to get through, those cars are allowed to go through. It's not illegal for them. It wouldn't be breaking the law to go through that red light, because you don't want to break up a funeral procession. They get a little bit of those special accommodations and a little bit of a alteration to the rule. So be mindful of that. Don't get pissed off if there's a few more vehicles and the light had turned green for you and you've been waiting to go through that intersection, but there's still some cars going through. They do have the right of way. Well, there you go. So there's chapter 8.